Steve Barclay for the government is with us this morning. It's good to see you, Mr. Barclay.
Good
Thank
morning.
you for joining us. The Parthenon sculpture, the Elgin Marbles. What on earth is going on there? Not very diplomatic, was it, of our Prime Minister?
Well, I think the British Museum's a jewel in the crown. It's something that people from across the world come and enjoy and we're very proud of. So I don't think anyone wants to relitigate something that's been settled for a huge amount of time. We have very good relations with the Greek government, but in terms of the Elgin Marbles, they're part of the British Museum. That's something that's been a constant for many decades, and I don't think anyone sees any need for that to change.
Yeah, absolutely. But as you know, I'm talking about the fact that the Prime Minister of Greece was snubbed by our Prime Minister. Massive diplomatic indiscretion is how the Greeks are seeing it. And even William Hague says it isn't a great advert for diplomacy.
No, as I say, I think this is an issue that's settled. So having meetings on something that's settled, I don't think is particularly productive. But of course, there's lots of other discussions that goes on with different governments,
Exactly.
and
So
those
don't
will happen.
cancel the meeting.
In there.
Why cancel the meeting now? There were lots of other things to talk about, not least immigration.
Well, I think people expect the Prime Minister to stand by the decision that's been in place for a long time in terms of the importance of the Elgin Marbles. They are a key part of the British Museum, and it's something that people from around the world are able to come and visit. But what they can also come and visit is the British countryside, and what we're announcing today is a really exciting proposal. I know the environment matters, Kay, and I'm sure we'll want to get on to that.
Even my director was impressed by that pivot, but I'm going to bring you back to the Elgin Marbles. Why snub a Prime Minister from another European country that we get on really well with, to the extent where overnight the Greeks have said it was a massive diplomatic indiscretion?
No, look, I get that sometimes people want to make this up into a bigger issue than it is. There's lots of meetings that take place. Having a meeting on
having a bigger issue than
having a meeting on something that is settled is not particularly productive. But there's lots of other discussions that happen. There was the opportunity of a meeting with the Deputy Prime Minister as well. But as I say, there's lots of other things that I think are more important for me. What I am focused on.
So the Greeks have overreacted.
Well, I am focused as the Environment Secretary on how we restore our landscape, and I think that's really important to people.
Overreacted is what the Greeks have done then, is it?
No, what I'm saying is I don't think anyone wants to spend a huge amount of time on an issue that's been settled for a long time, when, as I say, there are much more important issues that I, as Environment Secretary, am focused on, which is about how we restore our natural habitats, how we make it easier for people to access the brilliant British countryside that we have. And that's what we're announcing today. We've got 34 schemes, £25 million, where we're restoring our natural landscapes, our chalk streams, our wetlands, having more forests, 2 community forests, for example, so people in Tees Valley in South Derbyshire will benefit from £8 million of funding there. And also, Kate, something that's really exciting is the launch of a competition for a new national park. We had 270 million people visit our national parks last year. They're hugely valued as part of our cultural fabric, and therefore meeting our manifesto commitment. And you quite rightly will hold me to account if we don't meet manifesto commitments. So our manifesto,
but that's for a different day.
Well, our manifesto, one we are meeting, which I'm sure you'll be pleased to know, is our commitment to a national park. So having an additional national park, building on the 270 million that visit, I think is a really positive. And many people care deeply about the environment, as I do, and I think this is a really positive day in terms of restoring our natural habitat, making it easier for people to access it, and also having more community forests, more woodland planted.
OK, to that end, same theme, Chris Packham, chairman of the RSPCA, but also, as you know, a wildlife presenter. He's furious about what's going on I'm a Celebrity, and he says that animals are being badly treated in the jungle. What would you say?
Well, we care deeply about animal welfare. I haven't seen particularly what's going on with the many things that I'm focused on in my new role. I've not had a huge amount of time to watch that. But it's, as a government, we're hugely committed to animal welfare. That's where we've taken a series of measures. And, for example, in the King's Speech, banning the export of live animals. So we're taking, as a government action, what's going on in terms of overseas on the TV programme. I'm sure there'll be scrutiny of.
Yeah, so you've not been watching Nigel Farage?
I haven't actually, Kay.
Okay.
With a new brief, there's been lots to read into.
Let me tell you, it's probably...
Have you been watching?
I saw something that I can never unsee when it comes to Nigel Farage. We all know what I'm talking about. And yeah, I think I probably had enough after that. How are we going to make it right with the Greeks?
I'm focused on
Yeah, but
the
how are we going to make it right with the Greeks? They're our mates. We need to fix it.
We do, and there's lots of discussions go on at different levels and different ministerial levels. The Foreign Secretary will engage with his counterpart, for example. Other ministers at COP, for example, as ministers, I will be going to COP. The Prime Minister will be at COP as part of our commitment to the environment, to our habitats, how we restore them, how we meet our international obligations. And as part of COP, there will be a whole series of ministerial meetings with counterparts, and I'm sure that will include Greek counterparts. So let's not take this out of context. It's been an issue that's been settled for a long period of time, but what we're announcing today, I think, is a really positive measure in terms of the environment, how we get access to the environment.
Sure.
I just think that's a much more positive issue.
OK, Newcastle would have done well to have you in goal last night. Reading this morning that British families of hostages say they feel abandoned by this government.
Well, it's really important we get more aid into Gaza, but also that we facilitate British nationals in terms of being able...
Well, according to
the Foreign Office is very engaged on this. Lord Cameron, as Foreign Secretary, is very engaged. He was over in Israel very recently.
So why would the families say that then?
As I say, there's very close engagement. It's a complex issue, as you well know, in terms of the issues there. It's important that Israel has the right to defend itself, but in terms of the British government, what we're doing is also looking at what more aid we can get into Gaza and how we best support British nationals. Well, these are complex issues, and that is what the Foreign Secretary is engaged on.
President Biden overnight has tweeted in his personal capacity, basically, I paraphrase, to say that he wants the guns to remain silent. What's the British government's view?
Well, I think the people putting the citizens of Gaza at most risk is Hamas. It's Hamas that have used the citizens as human shields. It's Hamas that launched the most appalling atrocity on the people of Israel. And it's important that Israel is able to respond to that and deal with the threat that Hamas poses to them. But alongside that, what we are doing as a government is looking at how we get more aid into Gaza and how we ensure that British nationals are safeguarded. And that is what the Foreign Office is absolutely focused on.
I mean, I'm looking at what Lord Cameron was saying. You mentioned him earlier, you name-checked him earlier, and he says the casualties are too high in Gaza.
Well, and that's why international law needs to be
Do you agree with
observed. Well, I think as a father, when
as
you
your foreign
see...
secretary, as the Foreign Secretary says, casualties are too high. Do you agree with him?
Well, casualties are too high, and I think anyone watching the scenes finds it deeply upsetting when you see particularly children in a theatre of war that are caught up in that. But we should also be clear that the reason for that is the attack that Hamas has launched, and also the fact that Hamas has been using citizens in Gaza as human shields. So the responsibility for this sits with Hamas. But of course, I think anyone watching the footage finds it deeply distressing, particularly when you see children caught up in war. And I think for any of us, when we see that, obviously it's very hard to watch.